Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. It's almost time for the baseball playoffs. And so David Brown, our national baseball expert, is here to talk about national baseball. How's that for an intro?
National and American.
And
Both
American.
leagues.
That's right. We go both ways. So I guess we can start it this way. I had a reader who sent me a message yesterday afternoon, about how Matt Shaw taking off Sunday's game against the Reds could result inevitably in the entire 2027 baseball season being canceled and steroids returning to baseball. So we got to walk you through this. So
sounds biblical, like a plague.
So the Cubs they clinched on Wednesday with lots of time, the magic number over the Padres to make sure they got to play that wild card series in Wrigley was only 6. Oh, I'm just going to go to 4 games in Cincinnati and win a couple of those, and the Padres lose a couple against the White Sox. They lost 1. It'd basically be in the bag. And then the Cubs, and I saw somebody, I think it was Praz, blamed the Thursday loss on the Cubs playing hungover.
Huh?
And I got to tell you, I know professional baseball players. One thing they're good at, they have a lot of experience with, is playing hungover. Honestly, playing not hungover is probably a bigger handicap for some of those guys than playing hungover. So I'm not going to blame it on that. They managed to lose the first 3 games of the series to the Reds, and then they had a chance to salvage one on Sunday, and they had a really weird lineup. Justin Turner was playing third base for the first time in God knows how long. They had to play Michael Busch against a lefty, which they don't want to do because he can't hit anyone, especially not Andrew Abbott. And they had Carlos Santana, who was 0 for 16 as a Cub, was the DH. And then in the 9th inning, still down 1-0, Moises Ballesteros got on with nobody out, and they couldn't pinch run for him. And he ended up finishing the game standing on second base when Pete Crow Armstrong struck out. So it probably wouldn't have mattered. But the reason for all of those roster lineup hijinks was their regular third baseman, Matt Shaw, was at his favorite podcaster's Charlie Palooza out in the desert in Phoenix. I can't imagine, even in just a regular job where you have like vacation days and other stuff, going to my boss on a day when there's something important we're working on and being like, yeah, there's this podcaster I really like. I need to fly. I need to fly to his funeral. Was it really his funeral? Well, no, they've already had the funeral.
Is that not the phrase? Yes.
Yes. And it was a celebration because when the keynote speaker came out, they shot off fireworks in a dome for him, as you do at a memorial, indoor fireworks. It's not just an Elvis Costello song anymore.
Well, I don't know I'm not privy to like the exact nature of the Charlie Kirk, Matt Shaw relationship, but I mean, a good friend. I know, like, I remember Byron Buxton's cousin was having some difficulty, and he got off for that, and family members, that's one thing, but I don't know about podcaster / friend or friend / podcaster. It seems like someone was operating from a point of view of privilege, which checks.
We had a little blue sky discussion about, somebody pointed out that none of the Cubs went to Ryan Sandberg's funeral, but maybe it was also televised. Just odd that I'm not watching Ryan Sandberg's funeral on TV. I don't feel like I should do that.
You didn't watch the Queen, or what's another example of something?
I think the last funeral.
Let's say the president would have.
The last funeral I think I watched on TV was probably Harry Carey. That was live because Pete Von Aken, he knocked it out of the park with his eulogy. He did, actually. But anyway, and then my friend Chuck was like, "That's ridiculous." The Cubs were in Los Angeles. They had a game. The funeral was at 10 o'clock in the morning. None of the players could have expected to go. And my thought was, that's Right. Of course not. You would not be expected or to get permission to fly 1,000 miles to go to somebody's funeral in the middle of a non-family member's funeral in the middle of a playoff hunt. But that's exactly what Matt Shaw did. And so it's not ridiculous. I think it's a kind of a weird direct parallel.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this a situation where, and again, I haven't spent 1 second in the Cubs clubhouse this year, so I don't know what the vibe is like or the relationship between counsel and whatever. Is this like that Twilight Zone episode where if you didn't do what the little boy wanted, he would wish you into the cornfield? Is that we just don't want to make Matt mad, or
is that how they get guys back and forth to Iowa? They just piss Matt Shaw off and he starts to squint, and all of a sudden Porter Hodge is having steak de Burgo. Boy,
boy.
I guarantee Tom Ricketts would love that. Think of the bus ticket fare he'd save.
Right.
Hey, you don't even have to go Greyhound. Go over there and tell Matt that Benny Johnson sucks. There you are in Iowa. If only he could harness that power. Well, I want to get back. So how do we get from that to steroids in baseball?
Yeah, really. How do we?
Okay, so let's say the Cubs end up not getting the home field against the Padres by a game. And if they tie at the end of the year, the Padres are almost certainly going to get the tiebreaker because they have a 2-game lead. Thanks to Luke Little somehow managing to walk Jason Hayward and Gavin Sheets in a game in April that blew it for the Cubs. The Padres and them the season series tied at 3.
Yeah.
So the next tiebreaker is your record among your division foes. And both the Padres and Cubs finished the season against teams in their own division. The Cubs have 3 at home against the Cardinals. The Padres have 3 at home. I think they're at home against Arizona. And the Padres currently have a 2-game lead on the Cubs. So they would have to lose all 3, and the Cubs would have to sweep the Cardinals. So the Cubs really need to just finish ahead of the Padres and take all that crap out of it. But let's say they don't. And all of a sudden, those 3 wild card games, well, 2, the Cubs get swept, but 2 are played in Petco Park instead of Wrigley Field. So that's revenue that the Cubs don't get. And so this person was like, okay, so here's what happens. The Cubs don't get the home games. They don't get any playoff revenue. Tom Ricketts says, don't have enough money. We can't even try to sign Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers. The rest of the owners are so pissed that the Dodgers keep signing these huge free agents that they become emboldened to fight for a salary cap. The Players Association refuses to give in on that. The whole 2027 season is wiped out with a lockout/strike. And when they come back, baseball is no longer popular again. And so in 2030, everybody has to roid up to try to save baseball. And it's all because Matt Shaw had to go to Charlie Kirk's memorial service. I think the logic is flawless.
I would like to see this in an animation form, like in a YouTube video. I think that would be funny with someone narrating it. I'm not going to say who, but yeah, that's definitely getting to point C in a certain, but I mean, so I don't know if this scenario was conjured just to tell people to chill out or whatever, or not be too outraged by Matt's funeral.
I think it was the
plans,
opposite.
but
the person was like, how ridiculous is this? And now it's very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it was basically like, if you're the Cubs, don't you just have to tell them no? We still need you. It seemed weird to me. I know, given the political, I mean, he probably hopped on this Sinclair jet and was flown out there, given that Sinclair owns half of Marquee and the Ricketts are tight with those guys. But it really seems like a thing. It's like, you can't have the day off. I'm sorry. We need you. You're gonna.
I understood. I didn't have a problem with, and it's not up to me. So who cares? But like the day it happened, the day Charlie Kirk was killed, if they're too close and it shook him up too much, hold him out of the lineup. Yeah. And they kind of did that. And they kind of did that. You said he played in that game.
He was in the lineup
later.
He was in the posted lineup, and then they said because of a it was worded awkwardly too. It was pretty clear what it was. Like I think they simply said for personal reasons, and I get that. Like especially if you know the guy and you like him, and then you see the video, because there was a lot of graphic video of it. I could see you being like, "Holy shit, I can't process this today." And he actually played in that game. He came in late, and I don't know if he pinch hit, and I know he finished the game at third base.
But I think that is your consideration that you give him, and that's all you need to give him, and you don't really need to give him any more than that, and that should have been it.
Yep. And it's most likely it won't matter. A lot of things have to fall just right for this to all of a sudden, and then you have to make the assumption that he would have done something productive in that game against the Reds. So there's no way to ever know. But it's at the very least, it's a bad look. This whole, you can't like have try to give yourself credit for like the muted on-field celebration when they clinched a playoff spot, because they're like, look, our work is not done. We got a lot of work still to do these last 2 weeks of the season. And then basically be like, well, that's fine. One of our starters can just leave for a day.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. Either these games are really super important, or we're in and we'll worry about it on October, September 30th.
There's that as well. But I would say, and maybe it's just my personal view of how these things have gone before, I think you should probably lean on being happy that you won a playoff spot and celebrating as if it's.
They did. I mean, so what they did was when they won on the field, they didn't pile on everybody. They did like a handshake. Then they went in and they went crazy in the clubhouse, which is fine. All right. Nobody had any issue with that. But they were getting credit and giving themselves credit for, look how businesslike we took the win. Now we're going to celebrate because it's an accomplishment, but we're not done. Look at us. Look how serious we took this. And then 4 days later, they're shipping a guy off to the Mountain Time Zone to, go to a rally, go to a memorial service. Sorry, I mean, I call it a rally.
Yeah, right. I mean, and if he wanted to, I don't know if he would have had time to like go if the wife knows who he is, or I imagine Charlie Kirk knew a lot of people. I mean, but if she knew who he was, he could go out and even get on a plane and pay his respects if it doesn't get in the way of work. It's a bad look. It's a bad idea. It's a bad precedent. It's, would I feel this way if like Charlie Kirk said things and I agreed with? Yes, I would.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like if it was I'll just say this. If we're talking about, very popular podcasters, if I died, I wouldn't want Matt Shaw taking off a game to come to the rally that they will inevitably hold in my honor at the playhouse part of a McDonald's on State Street in Rockford. I want him to skip that. I want him to honor me by playing in that game for the Cubs.
You win that game.
Yep. I want him to write my name on the bat in huge letters and hit a slow roller to third and beat it out. That's what I want. Right. That's about the most I can expect out of the way Matt's swinging the bat lately. Although actually he did start to heat up, which made it kind of like you're one of the few guys. You're one of the few guys hitting right now. It's even worse that you're leaving. Couldn't you have sent Pete? He's not hitting. He basically had the day off too, but his was because there was a left-hander pitching and he hasn't hit one of those since June. Oh, well.
Or just send a Ricketts, like send an ambassador to represent.
Crane. What the hell else does Crane have to do? That seems like a good use of him. Let him go. He'd love that. Oh, well. Like I said, it may very well end up meaning nothing. And even if it does mean something, it'll be very difficult to prove that it actually had any kind of real impact. But if they're that close, maybe he could have convinced them to have the memorial on Monday because Cubs were off. Right. That's what Craig should have said. Can you see if they can do that on Monday instead? If you guys are such pals, see, what do you think? I don't know. Speaking of the Cubs, so I had the column, the newsletter on Tuesday was about the questions they need to answer going into the playoffs. Like, can Kyle Tucker stand up and take nourishment? He took his sore calf to Atlanta for a few days. No, Tampa for a few days to see a guru. I'm hoping it's Mac Newton. You remember Mac Newton?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes. He would fix him right up. I don't know why the Cubs haven't brought Mac in to fix his calf.
Oh boy, there's a name for the past.
So Kyle is back in Chicago now, and they said he probably most likely will not play on Tuesday, but they're hoping they can get him a few games. And at this point, I don't see how you can play him in the field, expect to play him in the field in the wild card series. I think him being able to DH is probably about as far as you want to stretch it.
Yeah.
And so there's that. What do they do about Kyle? Is he going to be available? And then there is who's going to start. There's a lot of talk about who's going to start game one, whether it be Cade Horton or Shota.
Yeah.
I think it's Cade. He's been.
You do? I was going to say Shota just because he's a little older.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're both going to pitch, so I guess it doesn't matter. You got to play at least 2 games. But Cade's been maybe the best pitcher in the National League for the last couple of months, much less the best Cub.
Right.
And then I guess do you want to put the burden of, if you lose game 1, do you want to put that on the rookie, or do you want to give that to Shota if you're pitching to save the season? I think I'd start with Cade, and then Shota's either closing the series out or he's trying to keep you alive. But then who pitches game 3? And for the longest time, it seemed like Matt Boyd would just pitch game 1. He was one of the best pitchers in the National League in the first half. But it's amazing that a guy who pitched 100 innings the last 3 years combined is at 170 this year, and he's exhausted.
Right.
It's like, I didn't think we saw that coming. I was more worried about that with Cade than I was with Matt. Cade doesn't seem to
Same here.
He doesn't seem to be slowing down, but Boyd is. So I guess you have to make a Matt Boyd, Jamison Tyon decision for if you have a game 3.
That's a short lead, That's not whoever it is.
Yeah.
It's not very, let's see, 2 starts ago, it was the Nationals, but Boyd was pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
but that's kind of his one out of the last 5. That's like the one, and it helped. Right. Can they play the Nationals in the game 3? Is that allowed?
I'm going to say
they got a lot of Padres on the team, all from the one trade. Given it's AJ, we're just going to can you let your old guys try to close this one out from the Nats? No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I kind of put Tyon in the Jason Hamill zone, where he started playoff games and Joe basically had somebody warming up in the bullpen from like the 3rd pitch.
Yes.
Just ready to go.
Right.
The first sign of trouble, and Jason was getting a yank. Then there was the question about their bench, because Jed's been busy just bringing in any old guy he could find the last few weeks. They're back to a 4-man bench for the playoffs because you're back to 26 instead of 28 players. And one way they could go is they have to have Justin Turner on it, because he was brought in to do 2 things: hit lefties and pinch hit. And he's been very good at both. Actually, he's been fine at hitting lefties. He's been very good as a pinch hitter. He has a .519 slug as a pinch hitter.
Wow.
And he's hitting .333, I think. He's had a really good year as a pinch hitter. So he's on. And then you got to have a backup catcher. So that's Reese McGuire. And then you got to have Willie Castro, because he's the one guy who can actually put a glove on and run around and do anything if somebody comes out. So that leaves one spot. And so do you go with Carlos Santana, the switch hitting version of Justin Turner? You need 2 of those guys on the roster at the same time. Because if you're Craig, you look down your bench and you have 2 40-year-olds and a catcher and Willie Castro, and that's your bench. You're like, oh, hopefully we don't need any of you guys. I would put Moises Ballesteros on the bench because he can hit, and they don't have anybody else who can hit. But there is another. They snuck a guy onto their 40-man roster, or I guess he didn't be on the 40. He just has to be in the organization before the end of August, and that is former Cub Billy Hamilton.
Yes.
Billy last played in the big leagues 2 years ago for the White Sox, and he played in 3 games, and he hasn't played since. And I think he's played a total of 70 games in the last 4 years.
They are going to steal this run. What I'm just projecting here. Billy Hamilton's going to be there. He's going to run, and he's going to steal a run. That's what they're going to do.
Well,
no one's hitting, so
he's been playing at Iowa, and he's only been pinch running. Even in Iowa, they aren't getting him at bats, which may be a mistake because, and I posted the clip today on the newsletter, and it made me, I should have put a trigger warning on it for Mike Donahue. In 2018, the Cubs put Terrance Gore on their playoff roster.
Yes.
And in the 13-inning loss to the Rockies in the wild card game, Anthony Rizzo, I think, led off an inning, or maybe there was one out. He got a single, and it was way too early. It was like the 7th inning, I think.
Right.
And it was a tie game, and Joe was like, well, time for Terrance. Going to steal second and third, and he'll score, and we'll have the lead, and we'll win. Well, he didn't. And then Terrance, he let him play. Terrance went out and played left field. And you've never seen anybody more terrified to be in the outfield during a big league game. Terrance was standing on the warning track for every batter. I always thought, well, he's probably a good defensive outfielder. No, he wasn't.
No.
But that didn't hurt them. What hurt them was he led off the 13th. He had a full count. And when you play the clip, A-Rod is doing the game for ESPN. And he's like, well, we know one thing. He's not going to be allowed to swing at this. You just got to take it. And the pitch bounced, and Terrance swung and missed and struck out. It's like he had 5 at-bats that year. It's like they should not have given him a bat. He should have been up there with just standing there with nothing in his hands.
I wonder if that's legal. That's a great question. What if he can go up there without a bat? Will the umpires allow it?
I don't know. And
my guess is maybe.
You'd think that would what if he had done this? What if once he got to full count, he just took the bat and tossed it to the on-deck circle? Would that so much have unnerved the pitcher that he would have been incapable of throwing a strike?
Because you're
probably
would have.
This guy can't get a hit no matter what. He literally doesn't have a bat. All I have to do is throw a strike. And I wonder if it would be so weird for the pitcher that he would. I forget who the pitcher was. It might have been Adam Ottavino. It was somebody, and he bounced it anyway. But Terrance helped him out. So instead of leading off the 13th and then stealing second and third, he struck out, and the Cubs lost. And that's why
pro wrestling theatrics aside, I would take the chance on him not throwing a strike without
the bat
happening. Well, I don't know.
Or with the bat. I can't believe they let him swing.
I'd go up there with a bat and pretend like you're going to hit and just not swing.
So that's my fear.
I do. I mean, you are getting to, I was looking at all I've heard lately is how the Cubs aren't hitting. I mean, we started talking about who should start and how short the lead should be. And as far as, how much room you give them to screw up in a game. But since August 1st, the Cubs, only one team has scored fewer runs than the Cubs since August 1st. The Orioles, and the Cubs are tied with the Angels. But there's some hope because expected weighted on base average. So based on everything they're doing except scoring, the Cubs are only they're eighth in the league. So they got a 336 expected weighted on base average. 8th best, yes. Yeah. So process good, results bad. I don't know if that's an oversimplification, but it gives me a little hope that they get a few things to fall in. They keep doing what they're doing. Don't send Terrance Gore up there with a bat, and maybe they'll score some runs.
Or Billy Hamilton with a bat.
Sorry, Billy Hamilton, yes.
Well, no, they could call Terrance Gore. I bet he can still run. What about Herb Washington? Is he still? How old is Herb? Is he alive? Is he in his 80s?
Did he die? Did Herb Washington die? I gotta look. I know he owns some franchises like McDonald's or Burger King or something. He's alive.
Well, call him up.
He's alive.
He never had a bat in the big leagues, right?
That's right.
But he stole 29 bases. And got caught 16 times. He wasn't even good at it. That's not a great percentage. He was just a
sprinter. He wasn't even, it's not like they had this really fast guy in the minor leagues.
And I noticed
was a baseball player.
And I wrote about it. He he was on the 74 A's that won the World Series, and he played in 5 games, all as a pinch runner, and he was 0 for 2 in stolen bases, both in the ALCS. He got thrown out by, I don't know who the Oriole catcher was in 1974, but he got him both times.
Still Andy Etchebarren, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, 31 of 48 for his career, so that's not...
okay, 31.
31 of 48. This is regular season.
Yeah, so 29 in 1974. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
29
anyway.
out of 45, and then 2 out of 3 in 75, which the A's did make the playoffs, but they did not get to the World Series that year.
That was wasn't that Billy Williams was his teammate in 75?
I believe.
Billy got there Billy got there just after the World Series. Well, to your point, in the first half, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Tucker, and Seiya Suzuki combined to drive in 206 runs. In the second half, they have combined to drive in 53.
Oof.
25% of their runs production. And I know there's fewer games in the second half, but there ain't 25%, or there ain't 75% fewer games. There's like 12 games fewer.
Fewer games, but more funeral podcasters. So
Seiya hasn't been any good since the 1st of June. He was great in April and May, and he's been ever since, which is not good. Pete has been terrible.
Some injury, did he not?
Ennui.
Seiya have a injury?
He just had some ennui.
Oh.
Yeah, he was but he hasn't missed that many games. I think he's going to play 150, I think.
Yeah.
He just hasn't been any damn good. Tucker has been battling injuries and also ennui. He got the magic timeout though against the Brewers and started to hit and then hurt himself. And Pete has just been bad. And we had a great note. I had John Greenberg on a couple of weeks ago, and he noted that after the All-Star game, MLB sent a communications person to handle Pete's media requests. They were so big that the MLB sent somebody to help. And after a couple of weeks, that person left because Pete was like, "Sorry, Pete, you're not playing well enough for this. No one wants to talk to you anymore. So I'm out of a job. Thanks."
Oh.
And she left. Yeah, I don't know whether to think. We've seen this movie before, over and over and over again with the Cubs, where the 2017 team. That's kind of when the offense started to break. They really struggled to score runs against the Nats in the series they did win, but then they beat them in Game 5 with that ridiculous inning off of Max Scherzer where they reach base every way you possibly can. They walked, they got hit by a pitch, they got a hit. Javi reached on catcher's interference, and they scored 5 runs and they ended up winning that game. And then they were just completely boat raced by the Dodgers. The Dodgers beat them 11-1 in the final game of that series, and the Cubs haven't scored 11 runs in the playoffs since. Total.
Right.
In fact, they haven't scored more than a run in any game since that 11-1 game. They scored what they made the playoffs when they made it in 18, they lost that game 13 innings 2-1 to the Rockies. When they made it in 20, they scored 1 run in 2 games against the mighty Marlins. Is how are you supposed to hit Jose Urena? And so they're just cruising it. It's just like, this is just what they do. They make the playoffs, and by the time they get there, their offense is so bad that you're like, oh, this is going to suck. But there's always because it's baseball, there's always the thought that what if all of a sudden they just start to hit again?
Right.
In which case, they would be really good because they're getting good pitching. Their bullpen has done excellent work. And like Pete doesn't have to be first half Pete, but he can't be second half Pete. And they got to get something out of Tucker. And it'd be nice if Seiya, the biggest accomplishment Seiya has had, so in the last couple of months was Hunter Green was going to no-hit them. And he got a double in the 7th and broke up the no-hitter. It's like, thank God. But it's not like the Padres are likely to completely shut their offense down by going to their bullpen in like the 3rd inning and bringing in somebody to throw 140 miles an hour every pitch for the rest of the game. That's not going to happen. So that brings me, well, you mentioned before we started that, because I asked you this question and you're like, well, is anybody in the American League any good? My question is anybody in the National League any good? I mean, there's the Brewers, who were the darlings. They're 10-9. They've lost. Brandon Woodruff is done.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
a big
know.
injury.
Is Trevor McGill going to come back or not? I don't know if he's going to make it back.
What is he? I don't know.
So they're losing.
I know he's close, but I don't know what that means either.
Right.
Other than
You might be able to stand on the mound and throw the ball, but you might not be worth it yet.
Jacob Misericordia looks like is he going to be the closer then? I don't know. They've talked about
I would think
him.
Like if I were the ruddy faced Pat Murphy, I would unleash Misericordia like as a 1 or 2 inning. Anytime there's a threat and you need to take the starter out, you bring the lanky kid in to throw 20 pitches as hard as he can and then see how many outs he gets and then get him out of there. That's how I would use him. So who knows? They might not be. And it's not like they have a long history of playoff success to fall back on. They have been miserable. The Phillies seem like they're good, but no Zach Wheeler, who's not just their best pitcher. He might be the best pitcher, especially in the postseason, and he's not going to be there.
The Phillies are, with the exception of not having him, are playing about as well as they have in the last 3 years in the regular season. So, it'd be crazy to think, well, they don't have Zach Wheeler, so how can we expect them to go to the World Series? But everyone else has got some kind of flaw. So maybe not quite to the degree that the American League teams do. I'm not particularly optimistic or confident, maybe is the word, about the Dodgers, just because they've had lots of problems all season with certain things that you would think would make them vulnerable in the playoffs. But Mookie is hitting, though. I mean, he's really a good version of himself, so that's good for them. The Padres, I kind of expect to be, I sort of expect the Padres to surprise people, but at the same time, there's some attrition going on there, and I don't know. The Diamondbacks they're not in, but they're dangerous just because they've gone deep before in the last couple of years, and even though they've had there's lots of flaws here. So I mean, I wouldn't even be, if the Mets suddenly turn their season around in the last week, and it wouldn't shock the heck out of me, but I can't. I don't know. I would not bet on any of these games or these teams.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wouldn't.
The segment brought to you by DraftKings. Don't bet on any of the games. Save your money. Don't do it. Like with the Dodgers, Max Muncy is back, and when he's been back, their offense has been good, but he has not hit this month, and he got hit in the head the other day by one of the Giants.
Saw that. Speaking
of getting hit in the head, so you know how in every no-hitter there's usually one kind of ridiculous defensive play that you all look back on, like Dwayne Wise.
Yeah.
But if Hunter Green had no-hit the Cubs, the thing that would have been the memorable defensive play was with Ballesteros on first base. Pete Crow ripped one that was going to be a double, maybe a triple, into the right field corner. Spencer Steer couldn't get his glove on it, and it hit Ballesteros right in the helmet, knocked the helmet off his head. He was a little stunned, as you might be, and didn't get to second base before the right fielder threw him out. And that saved the no-hitter before his double. So that's the highlight that would have been played over and over again. Remember when Moises saved the no-hitter by taking a line drive off the skull? And it was funny. They kept showing him in the Cub dugout, and everybody kept coming up to him, and he kept pointing to the same part of his head. So they were all asking him, where did it get you? And he's like, right here. And he seemed to be completely unfazed. He didn't come out of the game. He was fine.
Right.
I don't know if Don Zimmer, if he'd been alive, he would have gone down the tunnel and barfed. That was what he famously did when Mitch Williams got hit in the head with a comebacker, and Don went and threw up in the tunnel because Don had a plate in his head from getting hit in the head with a baseball. Yeah, I don't know. And so there is a playoff spot still up for grabs in the National League, and it's the last wild card spot. And thanks to the Cubs' lethargic trip to Cincinnati, the Reds have caught the Mets and are actually ahead of them because they have the tiebreaker on the Mets. So the Mets don't even control their own fate right now. And the Diamondbacks are only a game behind. So that made me look up 3-way tiebreakers for that spot. It's not, I was hoping it was going to be really convoluted, but it's not. And it's made easier by the fact that the Reds won the season series against both the Mets and the Diamondbacks. So if they tie, the Reds are in. You don't get to do any fun math. If the Mets and the Diamondbacks somehow tie, though, they split the season series 3-3. So then it goes to the record within your division. Same thing that might cost the Cubs against the Padres. The Diamondbacks 25-21 against the West, while the Mets are 24-25 against the East. So the Diamondbacks basically have that wrapped up because the Mets only play 3 more games against the. It could be 27-25. Diamondbacks could be 25-24 if they get swept by the Padres. So I guess the Mets still have an outside chance. But yeah, the Mets don't even own a tiebreaker in that. They're you'd like to say they're screwed, except they're coming to play the Cubs, and the Cubs have seemed to have packed it in for this. They won that game in Pittsburgh and went, all right, that's enough for the year. We'll just lose them all and go home. It'll be fun.
I don't know how good the Mets are, but it is funny how it's almost like they've done everything possible to play themselves out of the playoffs, but there's still time for one more surge. So you'd think the same thing of the Cubs too. So not that they've played themselves out of it, but there's enough time left in the season, and they're not playing so poorly that I mentioned their expected weighted on base percentage. So we head to the analytics and we say maybe they can score now. So
the Mets have one pitcher who has double-digit wins, just Clay Holmes at 11-8. David Peterson has 9. He could get 10 this week. And so their playoff rotation would likely be David Peterson and then the rookies. 3 rookies would be their other pitchers.
McLean and Tong, and who's the other one?
Yeah, I don't remember who the other one is. It's hard to tell but yeah, there's 3 of them. Jonah Tong is 2-2 with a 594, but he had one terrible outing. Those have been good. And McLean's been really good.
I know who it is. It's Bill Pulsifer. That's the other rookie.
That's right. They're finally ready to see him fulfill his promise. Right. Yeah, the Diamondbacks might make the playoffs after trading their corner infielders at the deadline.
Giving the owners just absolutely the wrong kind of incentives.
Yeah, that's what Tom Ricketts is like. I know why. Hey, Jed, I know why you're getting shit for not adding. You should have sold at the deadline. That's how we would have made the playoffs. Well, we did make the playoffs, Tom. Whatever. And then over in the American League, the Tigers have 2 paths to the playoffs. They could still win the Central, or they could be the wild card, or they could be none. Kind of amazing. They had a 15.5 game lead not all that long ago. You were muted.
I thought they would regress. That's usually a mistake I make on the other podcast. I thought they would be, come back down to earth, but this is like too much digging, way too much. The Guardians, kind of the American League version of Arizona. It doesn't really make any sense, but here they are.
Yeah, the Tigers didn't just come back to earth. They lost a heat shield, and they're just a fireball heading down to earth. They've lost
Columbia.
They've lost 9 out of 10, but I think it's even worse than that. 1, 2, because it only fits 9 out of 10 on the 1, 2, 3. No, it's 9 out of 10. I was thinking maybe it was like 11 out of 12.
6 in a row.
Enough.
That's good.
So. Yeah, including 3 to Cleveland at home, and now they have 3 in Cleveland.
Well, the Guardians still have probably trouble getting people to go to that game. So
the Tigers will still have home crowd event. 3 against the Guardians. They finish
a big Toledo presence.
They finish up in Boston. I don't know where the Guardians finish. Let's see. Who gets to play the White Sox? That should be
Yeah.
You should get to save your games against the White Sox, and then the high bidder finishes the season against them. You're like, we're spunky now. Yeah, you're still bad. Texas at home.
Yeah.
Oh, you probably just said that.
I did, but yeah, that's all right.
And then there's the Astros, who should have been dead long ago. Like the fact that they're somehow still in the playoff. It's like, how many limbs do you have to cut off of them? You're like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. They're still there. They had to bring Carlos Correa back to play third base and eat that most of his ridiculous contract to make an ill-fated run at it. They've had to bench the rookie of the year, Cam Smith, as he's been absolutely terrible in the second half. So probably not going to win that anymore. And yet they still kept hanging on, even with they had one of their pitchers trying to kill their catcher, all kinds of fun stuff. I want to look real quick here. Cam Smith. So in the first half, 277, 347, 418, 7 homers, 39 RBIs in 81 games. Pretty good, especially for a guy who's rushed to the big leagues and playing out of position. Right. Although it's funny that he's one of the fastest players in baseball.
Yeah.
He's just big. And they said he'll probably end up in center for him someday. This was Cam in the second half. 161, 256, 248, 2 homers, 11 RBIs. It's like his inner Cub kicked in. You can't take the Cub. You can take the player out of the Cubs, but you can't take the Cub out of the players.
I like the 90-something interval between hitting, the batting average, and the on-base percentage, but it's still at least 100, probably 100 points too low overall. So I don't like it that.
So let's see. I lost my place on this, my little wild card thing here. Yeah, the Guardians and Astros are currently tied for the last wild card spot.
Right.
But that means they're effectively Cleveland a game behind the Tigers? Yes. I don't know who has the tiebreaker between Cleveland and those are. I should have figured those out. I figured out the National League ones.
I can tell you. I think you're gonna find it for it. Guardians right now 6-4. So if they sweep, then they'll have the tiebreaker.
Yep, and they have it on Houston. They beat them 4-2.
Yeah.
So as of right now, Cleveland has the tiebreaker on both teams, which makes us there can't be a 3-way tie because it's 3 teams fighting for 2 spots.
I mean, I know they did this, I think, because it's what the players wanted, but the no tiebreaker business. But I think it would be better for the sport if we played a game or something like a game 163. I mean, maybe just use tiebreakers after that. But if everybody had to play, like, if we could play one extra game, I think that would be fun. And then anything after that, use the math. That
was my big idea, which was use the tiebreakers to whittle it down to 2 teams. So if you have a 3-way tie, that's where the tiebreakers come in. And it's like, sorry, you lost the tiebreaker. And so if it was, so if the Mets, Reds, and Diamondbacks all tied, the Mets go home because they don't have the tiebreaker on either of those teams. And then the Reds and Diamondbacks play one game to see who goes to the playoffs. Because game 163 is fun. And their whole idea with the new format was if 3-game series all in one spot, so there's no travel day. After the first game, it's an elimination game for somebody. And then if the other team wins that one, then it's an elimination game for both. So you get the same drama, but it doesn't feel the same way because the first game there is a tomorrow. Right. They tried to manufacture it and build extra inventory for TV all at the same time. We don't get A-Rod anymore on ESPN. Don't Michael Kay and A-Rod anymore because A-Rod is Fox only now, I think.
Oh.
So this is probably it for, if you enjoy the Michael Kay doing the morning game on ABC, you'd be the only one, but this is going to be it because unless
do you think that person listens to your podcast?
Yeah. Actually, unless I could see NBC hiring him to do it next year when NBC and Peacock have this round, which seems inevitable that's what's going to happen. And they announced Bob Costas's replacement on TBS, and it's Alex somebody. It's not Alex Cohen. It's a big. It's Alex Faust.
Yeah, right.
A Faustian bargain.
Ask me if I know who that is.
Do you know who that is?
Nope.
No, he's a former Sacramento Kings, or maybe it could be LA Kings. It just says former Kings broadcaster.
It could be Kansas City Kings. You don't know.
It is the LA Kings. So we got a hockey announcer. That'll be fine.
Ask me if I realized that Bob Costas was TNT's basketball voice. I didn't know that either. So
no, not basketball. The TBS is baseball. So remember, he was he struggled last year, especially he had that Royals Yankees series, and he was getting names wrong and spending long times pining about, as Bob is wont to do, pining about, like, he talked about George Brett for like a half hour during one of the games.
Turning. Yeah.
And TBS basically said, okay, Grandpa, go sit on the porch. But they still have 2 series in the second round. And so they need a second play-by-play announcer. And that's who this Alex Faust is. He's taking Bob's spot there. Bob's no longer doing play-by-play although it'll be funny because I'm sure NBC, they want him next year. Is Tony Kubek still alive?
He is. I miss that man. I liked him.
You got to bring him back. He's only 89.
He's been retired. He's got to be 30 years retired.
He could do him from home. It'd be fine. Bob can do it from home. Bob can do it from Tony's house because I don't think you can bring Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola back. Don't think that's an option.
Not in a natural way.
AI, Vin and Joe. Ugh. Don't think they won't think about it.
AI caramba.
Yeah. Well, you'll get. I wonder if the ESPN will assign Boog to the Cubs series. I think Boog and Doug Glanville get to do a TV. They normally are the Sunday Night Radio team. I believe they are teamed together for the first round of for the wild card. Or will they decide?
I remember
Boog might be too partial. He's barely partial on the marquee broadcast. I don't think you have to worry about it. Boog's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you remember they used to like avoid using if a team's announcer was the announcer.
Yeah,
they'd avoid using them in the national, Monday Night Baseball or whatever. This is going back to when it was like Don Drysdale. And now, I don't know if that's like 100% out the window, but you certainly don't have any qualms about Joe Davis in a World Series or whatever. So
no, and it's kind of, I mean, Vin did Dodgers World Series games, and I'm sure if there was somebody out there was mad, but it's Vin Scully, for Christ's sakes.
Well, we don't have any of those anymore. So
I was trying to figure out, as I put my time to good use, what TV slot the Cubs would be in. And so obviously it depends. You would figure, well, they're a big market, so they're going to want one of the premium. But we've got this issue, whereas if the playoffs started today, let's see, we'd have Yankees, Red Sox. Does TV like those two? Seems like they kind of do. And then you might have Cleveland, Detroit. TV doesn't give a shit about them. And then you're going to have Cubs, Padres, and you're going to have, I guess it depends. You might have Mets, Dodgers, or you could have Reds, Dodgers, or you could have D-bags, Dodgers. But I don't think it matters because they're the only West Coast team, so they're going to get the late. Somebody needs to be in that late slot. So that's going to have to be the Dodgers and whoever. If it's Cleveland, Detroit, they get the ABC afternoon game because it's Cleveland, Detroit.
Right.
So that leaves the first games are at 2-ish. The second games are like 4:30. And then the others are at 6:30 or whatever. So that leaves Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Padres. I would think that puts the Cubs, Padres into the 4:30 slot.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty good because it would be kind of quasi-day baseball, assuming the Cubs are at Wrigley.
What about shadows?
Will the Cubs activate Lee Smith? Bring him in. Oh, now the Cubs have lights. I like those. Oh, you turn the lights on and that cuts down the shadows. Does it? Does that really work?
Does it just make new ones?
The sun doesn't overpower those lights by making it bright in the background? No, it evens it out. I don't know.
I've still got in my head just like where they dropped all the steel for the light towers in 84 or 85 or whatever it was. They were going to bring them in temporarily for the World Series. I guess it would have been 84.
Yeah.
The World Series in 85. That was a fun controversy.
That was a whole thing. Uberoth threatened if the Cubs made it in 85, the Cubs were going to have to play their World Series games in St. Louis.
Right.
It's like, Pete, there's another park in town that has lights. You don't have to go to St. Louis.
Was he just assuming? Was he assuming that it was up to some guy from Bridgeport? I ain't having no Cubs.
Well, yeah, Mayor Daley probably would have refused. He'd have chained himself to the gate and not let the Cubs in. I think, as ridiculous it is, that's back when we still had National League, American League presidents. And the idea was that the Cubs had to play in a National League park. as if that really fucking mattered. But I guarantee
I
you that
can't.
was part of it. And also,
It
I
is
think
not appropriate when I think of that idea.
I think he was working on the Cubs' behalf. His threats to the Cubs were actually made on their behalf. He was trying to prove to the fans, you have to relent and let them get lights, because otherwise you're going to have to go to St. Louis to watch World Series games, and you hate St. Louis.
Right. There you go.
That was, I think, why.
Reverse psychology.
I think it was not threats to the Cubs. It was because the Cubs were like, yes, we need lights. We want lights. And then it didn't matter because the whole pitching staff got hurt in 85 and they were lousy, and they weren't good again until 89. And by then they had lights. So it was all fine. I think that's it. I don't know, I had Kershaw written down, but we talked, Oleg and Praz and I talked about Kershaw's retirement on Tuesday. How we don't like him. We're glad he's gone. Although
you don't like
playoff Kershaw was fine. Pitched one of my pitched one of my favorite games of all time. Game 6 of the 2016 National League Championship Series.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of those guys who said, I think it was somebody commenting on the podcast, was like, it seemed really weird that here was this guy held up as like the greatest pitcher in baseball. And because he was pitching game 6, he went to the game going, Cubs are going to win today. Because playoff Kershaw is. And the only thing I'll say about it is Greg Maddux got a lot of shit for not being as good in the playoffs as he did in the regular season. And if you look up his playoff stats, his ERA is about a half a run higher in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. Yeah. Kershaw's is more than 2 runs, almost 2.5 higher in the playoffs.
Right.
And then he had those spectacular, giving up the only left-handed home run he gave up in an entire season. Was that to Matt Adams, or was it the Duncan
Matt
kid?
Adams.
Matt Adams.
No, it was Mayo. It was Big Mayo.
Yeah.
Big Mayo was not really his nickname, but that's what I call him.
I think it was Sam Miller who said basically if the Dodgers had pitched Kershaw 1 inning less than they did in all those big games, people would still think he was the greatest pitcher of all time, because it was always trying to push one more inning out of Clayton before they got to the bullpen, and that's when he would give up the iconic home run.
I don't remember when it was in the, I haven't memorized his line by line, game by game in the playoffs, but at some point he had a Bonds breakthrough. Maybe it was 2020. I don't know.
Well, he won.
When he pitched really well in the playoffs, and was like, all right, well, that's over. That narrative's dead, and then it lives again.
2017, he won the pennant clincher at Wrigley, and that seemed to be the one that got the monkey off his back.
Right.
But, I mean, his postseason is pretty sketchy for a guy who was, he got 1 year 9.45 ERA, 6.30, 7.82, 5.84, 5.68, 7.36, 7.11, 7.20, 5.40 for a guy who, you look at his regular season ones, and I mean, he led the National League in ERA 4 years in a row, 228, 253, 183, 177, then 213, 169, 231, all in a row. And they made the playoffs most of those years, and then that ERA would go up by like 4 runs in the playoffs. And it's not fair to judge a guy on a small sample like that, but it's the sample that matters more than any other. So you do get judged by it.
It's just funny how, he's got, I believe, the lowest adjusted ERA. I don't know if it's of all time in the regular season, but like at least in the last 60 years. So it's hard to square all of it. And then you look at Madison Bumgarner, who has, I don't think maybe he's got a Jack Morris chance of the Hall of Fame someday, but he's basically got no chance of the Hall of Fame. It's going to be some committee probably doing the wrong thing by putting Madison Bumgarner in the Hall of Fame. And he's got the postseason that Kershaw had in the regular season in his career. And Kershaw's obviously going to the Hall of Fame. So it's just weird how sometimes these things work out the way they do. And I remember Maddux, maybe it wasn't linear like this, but he had a couple of blow ups in 88, in 89.
Well, he had the infamous. He's the reason that every pitcher holds a glove over their mouth on the mound.
Yeah.
Because he's facing home plate as Will Clark walks up, and the pitching coach comes out to talk to him and asks him what he wants to throw, and he says fastball in, and Will saw it. and hit the next pitch about 800 feet onto the street. Madison Bumgarner's final 7 seasons. Do you know how many games he won?
In his final 7 seasons?
Final 7 seasons.
54.
34.
Wow.
34 and 57 with a 4.31 ERA. He'd rattled off 13, 16, 13, 18, 18, 15, and then he never won more than 9 games again. For basically half his career. But
I mean, pretty clear that at some point, those long postseasons with the Giants are what made it so the second half of his career was shit.
Yeah, his playoff, he's 8-3 in 11 starts. He's got 1 relief appearance. It's kind of a famous relief appearance, I suppose.
Yes.
He comes in and shuts out the Royals on what? 1 day's rest? For 5 innings?
1 or 2.
To wrap up a World Series. Although if they had, I can't think of his name. Who was the guy from Nebraska Alex Gordon.
Alex Gordon.
If they'd have sent him, who knows?
He'd probably been thrown out.
He'd have been out by 35 feet, probably.
Yeah. I mean, assuming they make a normal throw, yes.
Bumgarner, 8-3, 2.11 ERA, 74 hits, 102 innings, 87 strikeouts. In his final postseason game ever, he gave up a 3-run homer to Jake Arrieta.
There you go.
One of only 8 home runs he ever gave up in the postseason. Jake's got one. What I always remember about that was the Cub dugout went nuts, like more than normal, because Jake had a 3-run homer, gave himself a 3-0 lead, and they're like, "We won. We're advancing." Right. And then they lost, and then they had to have literally the biggest 9th inning comeback in playoff history to win the next night to get through. But the unsung hero of that round is Mike Montgomery. Because he went into extra innings, and it dragged on, and he pitched all the extra innings. He ended up taking the loss, but the Giants used every pitcher they had, and then that led to Bruce Bochy's he changed pitchers like 6 times in the 9th inning in Game 4, and nobody could get an out. But my favorite of all time will still be Hobby hits the ball that gives the Cubs the lead, and Will Smith can field it, but he literally pulls his hands back thinking that they're going to turn a double play, and the ball just rolls into center field and the Giants lose. Like, whoops.
Oh my God.
They always tell the pitcher, don't get in the way. Well, that one he needed to get in. Anyway, we'll see at least there's things going on this week. Felt like this was going to be just kind of a tune-up, but there's some important games to be played, so that'll be fun. And it'd be nice for the Cubs to win a few, because I don't want them to have to go to San Diego. I've seen that. That didn't go well. They've never lost a home playoff game to the Padres. So I think they should just keep it that way. All right. Well, we'll see what happens.
All right, Andy. Thank you.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Thank you. Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much.
Awesome.